What if the biggest political lie in America is that the two parties are actually fighting over the things that matter most? A lot of voters look at Washington and see something else. Not two real opposites, but one permanent political machine wearing two different jerseys. That is the idea behind the uniparty. Not that Democrats and Republicans never disagree. Of course they do. Loudly, constantly, publicly. But critics of the system argue that when it comes to the biggest questions, the pattern looks awfully familiar. Massive spending, endless debt, foreign policy shaped by intervention, escalation, and elite consensus. A political class that somehow always finds money for the priorities of Washington while telling ordinary Americans to wait their turn. And while all that is happening, the public gets fed an endless stream of cultural warfare: red versus blue, neighbor versus neighbor. Working people turned against each other over every fault line imaginable. Because as long as voters are emotionally locked into tribal combat, they are less likely to notice where the parties actually move in the same direction. That is the real power of the system, not agreement on everything. Agreement on enough. Enough to protect the status quo, enough to preserve the donor class, enough to keep the public angry, distracted, and politically homeless. And more Americans are starting to feel it. Gallup found a record 45% identified as independents in 2025. Pew reported in January 2026 that nearly 4 in 10 Americans wish they had more choices than just the Republican and Democratic parties. So, what is the answer? Maybe it starts with breaking the binary: more ballot access, ranked choice voting, more room for independents and third party voices, less zero sum theater, more actual representation. Ranked choice voting already exists for statewide elections in Alaska and Maine, though state rules differ widely across the country. Because if both parties benefit from the same broken structure, then the solution is not just choosing a different team, it is changing the game. The question is not whether the uniparty is real. The question is why so many Americans believe the current system no longer represents them.